Hello everyone, I'm Dalton Burdett.
I'm Ryan Warner.
And we are the Movie Nights. Well, some of them. If you're watching this, it's because you want to hear our uncensored and unfiltered thoughts and opinions about the world of movies. So kick back, grab a snack, and thank you for being a part of the conversation. We'd like to start off the show by thanking our partners, the Great Movie Radio Show and the Podcast City Network. You can find links to their stuff in the description below. Ryan, hello, how are you, my guy?
Oh, I am great. How are you?
I'm just chilling. Life update from a couple episodes ago. My unemployment finally came in, so I'm chilling. Yeah.
Nothing to worry about anymore.
Never. No, but my theater actually opens within a few weeks. I don't know when I'll be brought back, but that's still cool to know that, that movie theaters are just opening in general. And,
slowly but surely.
And New Mutants is supposed to come out August 28th.
We'll see.
And I might cry when that movie starts, just because I've wanted to see it since 2017.
Yeah.
So, it's
a long time coming.
It'll be an interesting journey. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into the entertainment news section of the show today because we have tons of stuff to get into. Lots to digest here. I'm really excited. You ready, my good man?
Absolutely. Let's kick it off.
All right, coming at you first. This one comes to us from Deadline. Captain Marvel 2 is officially happening. They haven't officially put it on the Phase 4 slate yet, but we're assuming that it probably will be, maybe even Phase 5. But it has now found a new director from the previous film. It will be Nia DaCosta, who is directing the Candyman reboot that comes out this September. Apparently, Disney either got reached out to watch it or was really impressed by her pitch, but either way, they are ready to give Captain Marvel 2 to Nia DaCosta, and if she's been handpicked by Jordan Peele to direct Candyman as well, then we really got nothing to worry about, because obviously she's impressing a lot of the right people. So I'm really looking forward to her directing Captain Marvel 2. I'm really looking forward to Candyman, and I'll probably get a better idea of how she'll direct it once I see Candyman, because we haven't seen the new one yet. And if Candyman really sucks, then obviously I'll be worried, but the trailers have looked great, and she definitely looks like she has her own style, at least from the marketing of the film already. But I'm looking forward to Candyman and Captain Marvel 2, especially if Candyman is good. What are your overall thoughts on this?
Well, I'm very glad that Marvel handpicked her for Captain Marvel 2, which I'm really hoping that she went in there with a killer pitch. I don't think I've seen any of her movies. I don't know if Candyman is her first
I think
movie.
Candyman is her second feature.
Oh, wow. So picking her right up. It seems like that Marvel really likes to do this with directors, really indie filmmakers who don't really have a name for themselves, which honestly we haven't seen a bad Marvel movie, and I think that she's gonna knock it out of the park just like every other movie that we've seen in the MCU. I don't see why it would be any different coming from her. I think she's really gonna knock it out of the park, and personally I thought the first Captain Marvel movie was good. I wasn't my socks weren't blown off.
It was mid to lower tier MCU, but it was still pretty good.
Absolutely, but since she's already established as a character and we've seen her a few times now, I'm really hoping that she can just hit the ground running with Captain Marvel 2, and she can really just knock it out of the park.
Yeah, and, I didn't really love the first Captain America movie all that much, but then Winter Soldier came out, and Civil War, and then it was Captain America all the way, so maybe we can see the same thing here.
Absolutely, and I'd really like to see that, especially since a lot of the older Avengers are out of the picture now. It's really up to these new Avengers to keep these movies and keep this universe moving forward. Since we don't have Captain America anymore, we don't have Iron Man, it's really just onto these new characters to really keep the universe running, and I think a key contributor to that will be Captain Marvel herself. So I'm very excited to see what direction she's going to take Captain Marvel.
Yeah, no, me too. Let's go ahead and dive into our next story, Ryan. This one makes me personally very, very excited. This one has been reported by all the major trades. Apparently, on a recent Lionsgate earnings call, the CEO, John John F.
Favreau.
No, God. CEO of Lionsgate said in an earnings call that, yes, they talked about shooting John Wick 4, how it was delayed, that they're also going to be shooting a John Wick 5 back-to-back with John Wick 4, which is just nothing but exciting news. We thought they were going to be done after 3, and we're going to get 2 more.
We thought they were going to be done after 1.
Yeah, right? So I think this is really exciting news. I'm glad that they're going to shoot them back-to-back, because while Keanu still has it, he's not getting any younger, so I'm sure they're understanding that and trying to capitalize and use him as much as they can while he has this time. And also, I think this is nothing. I don't see any downside to this happening, especially because the John Wick franchise has always had been critically well received and made a bunch of money. John Campea actually did a really good breakdown where he said, just showed like the budgets and the finances for each John Wick movie, and showed that the first movie made 3 times its budget or 4 times its budget. The next one made 5 times its budget, and then the next one made 6 times its budget, or maybe it was 2, 3, 4, something like that. But they keep like making money off of these things and only increasing the budgets ever so slightly.
Yeah.
So naturally, I think that they have the confidence to pull this off and do this. I think it's a great idea. And just what are your overall thoughts on another John Wick movie coming? And the fact that it's not just 4, but like another one, like 4 and 5, and that they're going to be shooting back to back.
We're going to have a franchise. I'm very excited. I love all the John Wick movies. They just get better and better with each movie. And I don't know what the budgets are. It's not something I've ever looked into, but just knowing what's in those movies, it doesn't seem like the budgets are even that big to begin with. It seems like they're very low budget because most of it is action, so it seems like most of the budget would be going into action choreography and some of the set design that goes into that. So naturally I'm very excited to hear that they not only have a 4th one but a 5th one. And it seems like whenever they shoot movies back to back, it always, I don't want to say always, but from what I've seen, it works out in their favor because they are still in that mode, they're still in that character, they're still in that groove to really grind out another film. Because I believe they shot Infinity War and Endgame back to back, or pretty much at the same time. So I feel like 4 is going to be good, but I feel like 5 is going to be even better because they're going to be able to have that same mojo going into 5 and have that same energy and that passion going into 5.
Yeah, and this isn't confirmed, but it feels like since they're doing them back to back, that maybe the stories in 4 and 5 are pretty connected, and that's why they're doing it.
Exactly, and that's what I was starting to think about with 1 and 2, because 2 starts off the second 1 ends.
Or 3 starts off the second 2
Yes,
ends.
yes. Whenever he's running away from the hotel. So, it's a fantastic threequel. It's but it's going to turn into a fantastic franchise. The action, like I said, only gets better, and I'm very excited to see where the story is going to go, because like you said, after 3 we thought that was it, but somehow they're still going to keep us hooked, they're still going to keep audiences going, and they're still going to make their money,
and the action's still going to be spectacular,
and the action gets better with every movie. Like, I just don't know how they do it.
And from what I understand, the director of the first 2 films is going to do 4 and 5 as well.
Good.
Chad Stileski, that's his name. It was Leach.
Yeah, he did Atomic Blonde.
That was David Leach. Chad and David both did 1, and then David went off to do other projects, and Chad stayed with John Wick.
Okay.
Yes. Also, in that Lionsgate call, they were confirming other projects, and turns out they're going to make a Dirty Dancing sequel with Jennifer Grey returning in the role.
Cool. To me, that doesn't mean anything because I haven't seen Dirty Dancing, but I know it's a well-loved movie.
It is a very good movie. Unfortunately, Patrick Swayze can't be in it because he passed away a few years ago. But all we know about it is that it's going to be directed by the director of Warm Bodies, whose name is Jonathan Levine, and it's going to be written by Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iconis, who wrote 5 Feet Apart and The Curse of La Llorona. So this might suck. But apparently, I've never seen Warm Bodies, but apparently that was good. So maybe in the hands of a right director, this can go well. But I'm a big fan of the first movie. My mother loves the first movie. And I'm curious to see Jennifer Grey come back and reprise that role. I know you haven't seen the movie, but just overall in general, I know you've talked about before the idea of like actors returning to franchises years later kind of excites interest for you. Does this spark interest for you to see the original and possibly this one when it's released?
Oh, absolutely. I haven't seen the movie, but funny enough, I have seen a play of it at the Dr. Phillips Center downtown, and I actually enjoyed the play, so I pretty much kind of know the movie, but it does spark an interest in me to go back and watch the first movie because she is coming back to reprise her role, and that's always exciting to hear whether you're a fan or not, like I've stated previously. So ultimately we have to see kind of where the story goes, because Patrick Swayze is, unfortunately, he has passed, so he won't be able to come back. So how they're going to tie up his story, it's going to be very fascinating, because I'm assuming they end up together, whether married, dating, so we'll have to see what they do with his character, because I hope it's very respectful with what they do.
So yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it as well. Hopefully it can be good, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. Like I said, we have tons of stories, so sorry if it seems like I'm rushing through stuff. But you love Ben Affleck. I love Ben Affleck.
We all love Ben Affleck.
I want to give him a hug very badly. I'm glad he's happy with his new girlfriend, Ana de Armas. It's the only celebrity couple I follow, are those two. They just warm my heart. He just looks like a much happier person. I'm so proud of him for all that he's overcome.
Every photo I ever see of them two, Ana de Armas is always like hunched over, laughing her ass off. So he must be some funny MFer, dude.
Oh, he is. He is, totally. And speaking of Ben Affleck, wow.
Segue.
He has a new project he's going to direct, which makes me excited because I love him as a director. He's going to direct the adaptation of Big Goodbye, which is the behind-the-scenes story of the making of the film Chinatown. Chinatown is one of the greatest movies ever made. It's a classic in American culture and cinema, which eventually we'll do for classic movie reviews. But I'm very much so looking forward to this, not only because it's Ben Affleck, but also because it's the making of Chinatown. And from what I understand, it's going to be a biopic of the making of the movie. It's not going to be like a documentary or anything like that, from what the article says on Deadline. But also, there's going to have characters in it, like someone's going to play Jack Nicholson, someone's going to play Roman Polanski. Maybe they'll touch on some controversial stuff there. If they didn't, it'd be weird, so I think they have to bring it up somehow.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as to the direction this movie's going to take, and just sort of dive into the story of one of the great American noir films. Does this idea excite you, and just what do you think of Ben Affleck as a director?
Well, I haven't seen any of his directed stuff, but I know...
You haven't seen Argo?
Never. Argo, Town. But I know that we had a talk previously that you actually prefer Ben Affleck as a director over an actor, which is very fascinating because I think he's a great actor. So ultimately, I will go back and watch some of his movies that he's directed before watching this. But I will say it only has me excited because he's going to be directing this. Outside of that, that's really it, because I don't know much about the behind the scenes of Chinatown. I've never seen the movie, so I don't know if it's going to be interesting enough to sit and watch a movie, like a biopic about the making of that movie. I don't know. It just honestly does not have me that excited. The only exciting thing about it, like I said, is Ben Affleck directing the movie. Is there stuff that may have happened behind the scenes that you know about or anything?
Not that I know about, so that's why I'm curious to watch the movie, because I know a lot of films have a lot of crazy behind the scenes stories.
Well, The Shining is very infamous for having horrible behind the scenes and culture behind it.
Yeah, but I'm honestly looking forward to see who they cast to play famous actors, because A-listers are going to surround this project because they're going to want to play people who are their idols. You know what I mean? How many actors are going to jump at the opportunity to play young Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see who's going to be in these roles. But I'm also just really happy that Ben Affleck's directing a new project, because some of his most recent projects he's supposed to direct either got axed because of the Disney-Fox merger or got pushed for whatever reason. And then there's his Batman. Shame. Sigh.
Shame, you did not like our game.
Oh my god. No, but yeah, it's a new Ben Affleck directed movie, like I said, so I'm there no matter what. And someone has a small penis, but yeah, either way, I'm looking forward to it. And I keep repeating myself because I'm trying to think of a segue to our next story. So anyway, moving on.
So segue.
This comes to us from The Hollywood Reporter. Jason Bateman and the Game Night writer reteam for a movie called Superworld. This is based on an adaptation of Gus Grieger's novel, set in a world where everyone on the planet has superpowers except for one man. And that just sounds like such a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
And it's very much implied that Jason Bateman will play the role of the man without the superpowers. And
especially since he's the confirmed actor in it, you would think that he would be the one man out.
Yeah, and obviously it's going to be from the writer of Game Night, but this person also wrote a movie called Accepted, which is one of my favorite comedies ever.
Is that the college one?
Yes,
okay.
I love that little movie. And I also really loved Game Night, and I love Jason Bateman. I think he's multi-talented in all areas of filmmaking, and I really like him as an actor as well. And just this overall concept sounds hilarious, and I think these two teaming together can be a really great thing. And Jason Bateman's production company is also going to help produce the film, so clearly he believes in the story, not just the on-camera portions of what he has to bring to the table. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. I hadn't heard of this property before, but now it's piqued my interest, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this on the screen. But how about you?
It sounds like a very fascinating idea, and Game Night is absolutely hilarious. Jason Bateman is outstanding in that movie, and everyone has great comedic lines in it, great comedic timing, and a lot of that is due to the funny writing that comes from that movie.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad to know that they're teaming up again, and Jason Bateman actually believes in this project, like you said, with his production company helping fund it and producing it. So we'll have to wait and see it. It's a very fascinating concept, because everything you see nowadays is like one superhero in the normal world, so it'll be nice to see like the roles reversed to that. And Jason Bateman's going to be extremely pissed off. Like, why is it me that is normal? Like, why me? I would be able to do all these great things.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how he plays that.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, really fun. And I'm picturing, like, Michael Bluth, like, from Arrested Development, like, as that character, like, him doing something like that. Maybe he does something completely different. But either way, I'm excited Jason Bateman's doing this. I'm excited that this project exists, because, like I said, as soon as I saw the log line, I was like, oh my god, I have to see this movie when it comes out.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating concept, and it just seems like there's an endless number of things you could do with that idea.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're going to go ahead and move on to another story that we have. There's a big story at the end that I want to save for, so I'm trying to get to, like, the other ones. It was a huge news week, ladies and gentlemen. From the director of Lion, Garth Davis, according to Deadline, is going to direct a new Tron sequel with Jared Leto in the lead role. It is unconfirmed whether this is directed to the first Tron sequel that they did, Tron Legacy, which starred Olivia Wilde, and I forget the lead actor's name, but Jeff Bridges also came back from the original Tron to be in it. But literally the only details that we have is that Jared Leto is going to be in it, and that guy's going to be directing it. I've never seen any of the Tron films, but I know people who absolutely love those movies, and I plan on watching them eventually, and we might even have to do a franchise spotlight once this third one comes out. But I know that Disney's talked about doing another Tron for a long time after Tron Legacy, but it didn't perform quite as well as they'd hoped it would, and it was kind of split with people and critics, but like there seemed to be like a group of fans, passionate fans around it, just the whole Tron story in general. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how this movie goes, what directions they take, maybe the different visual style. Because I know Daft Punk did the score of the second movie, so maybe they come back and do it again.
Yeah.
Who knows? But either way, I am curious, because, Jared Leto's an Academy Award-winning actor. And from what the little statements he's made about Tron, he seems very passionate about doing this. So I'm looking forward to what he does. If you have any thoughts on this, how do you feel about this happening?
I have no connection to Tron, but like you, I know people who absolutely love these movies. I don't know anything about Tron, I'm not going to lie. They race cars and there's pretty lights. That's the extent of my knowledge, and Jeff Bridges was in the original one, and that's really all I know. It's a shame, but I will inevitably watch these movies because I know that they have a huge following, and they are well loved. So I will eventually watch them. But speaking on Jared Leto, I know that he doesn't really do films unless it's something he is passionate about or something that he loves, because he's very, he likes to go method with how he takes on movies.
Absolutely.
So it always gives me hope to see him in a movie, even though like a lot of people like kind of give him shit for Joker, but he was passionate about that, even though he kind of got screwed, and that's a whole story in its own.
And apparently there's tons of footage we haven't even seen.
Exactly.
Of his Joker,
but I know that he doesn't do anything unless he's passionate about it. So there must be something in this story, something about this that he's passionate about, which if someone is passionate about a film that they're making, it makes me passionate to go and watch it, because it means that they truly believe in it. So why can't I,
Yeah, no, I'm going to go see it, and I'll definitely check out Tron 1 and 2 before I go see it. And really looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
And finally, the big boy story. I think the biggest thing that happened in news, entertainment news, and that is a federal judge has given the green light to terminate the Paramount consent decrees.
What does that mean, Dalton? Please tell us.
I'm so glad that you asked. In the golden age of Hollywood, way back in the day,
like 5 years ago.
Oh God. No, in the 40s and 50s and 30s, basically, movie studios also had the right to own movie theaters, completely just vertically integrate and own everything about movies. They could produce them, distribute them, exhibit them, everything.
So, for example, Universal Studios, the production company, could own, let's say, like AMC and
Just
own all of
hypothetically,
AMC, and then they could only play Universal movies at those selected theaters.
Yes, and this raised a lot of antitrust concerns at the time, just like from a legal perspective. And then so they made this thing called the Paramount Decrees, where the biggest studios in the world could no longer be allowed to own any type of movie theater. But there was more to that, one of them being block booking, which we'll bring up here in a second. But the big thing is that has now been thrown out, and this doesn't have anything to do with COVID. This was a process that happened like a year ago, and is just now catching up and doing it. But they have been officially thrown out. Now, ironically, at the time they were made, like Disney wasn't a big studio at the time, so like Disney was never even barred from doing it the whole time, just because like. But it's also a legal precedent issue, right? Like maybe if Disney had tried to do this, then they could get sued and be like, there's legal precedent for these other studios, and it'd be a whole mess anyway.
Yeah.
Like one of them mentioned, like they can't do it is RKO Pictures, which did like Casablanca and stuff. Like it was an old, production company and distribution company. But regardless, this has brought up a lot of concern within the film industry about, oh my God, like now movie theaters, movie studios can really do whatever they want now. Like, this is bad. Isn't this really, really bad? Well, the reason that the judge threw it out and decided that they're no longer needed is because they've decided that we're in a position now where none of that needs to happen and that studios aren't going to be tempted to do so. And I agree with the portion of getting into the exhibition business, like buying movie theaters for the most part. But block booking is a part of that deal, that they banned block booking back in the day when they did that. And that is what concerns me about something that could potentially happen.
So what's block booking?
Thank you. Man, you're catching everything I'm putting up here.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
Block booking is the process of kind of bullying a theater chain into taking more than one of your movies in order to show a movie that's going to obviously do very well. So, for example, let's say Warner Brothers was negotiating a Tenet release with Regal Cinemas. And they went to Regal and said, hey, do you want to show Tenet? And they were like, yes, this is going to make a lot of money. We'd love to show Tenet. And they're like, okay, but you have to take Tenet. And then they have their normal negotiations, like has to show on this number of screens for this amount of time. It's like, oh, but you also have to take this movie, this movie, this movie, and this movie. And when you take Wonder Woman, it has to play for 25 weeks. And when you take this, it has to play for this long. And pretty much it just like, there was no check and balance of selling a movie, and you'd have to take a bunch of other smaller movies with you to sort of force one theater chain to specifically play a certain company's movies. And the reason why that was deemed illegal is because it was anti-competition. There was no way to have several distribution companies play at the same theater. It made it pretty much impossible.
Right.
Now, nowadays, with bigger chains like AMC and Regal and Cinemark, they probably wouldn't have the biggest problem with this, but the fact that block booking is legal now obviously means that some studios are going to take advantage of this in some way, shape, or form.
Because it's more money for them.
Money. Yep. And this is going to completely eliminate independent theaters. Because think about a theater that has one screen, 3 screens.
Yeah.
If they want to show a big blockbuster, now they're going to be bullied into deals where they're going to pretty much be showing one company's movies for an extended period of time.
It could be up to a year.
And there could be movies that aren't going to make them much money except for the one blockbuster that they need. So it's really problematic. And that's the one part of the decrees that I'm really upset that, because like they overturned the whole thing and that was part of it. I'm really upset about that. Now, there is a 2-year grace period where movie studios still can't block book for 2 years. But I would really feel more comfortable if studios came out and said, like, made it like a signed agreement. They're like, hey, let's all come out and agree not to block book movies. I don't see that happening unless the movie theaters start to like push back and say, hey, no. But this is kind of going to get swept under the rug, like this whole thing. So we probably won't see this become an issue for another 2 years. But I see a lot of people online being concerned about, people can buy movie theaters now. Like Universal Pictures can own movie theaters. Disney can buy its own movie theater and like only play Disney movies. That's crazy. It's like, just because they can doesn't mean that they will. And the reason I say that is with an asterisk. And the reason I say that is because movie studios know more than anyone what a very thin margin business movie theaters run. They're barely profitable at the end of a year, sometimes not profitable. It's very much yay or nay, could happen. Especially 2020, it's all going to be negative. So they know better than anyone, like, yeah, we're not even going to touch that shit. We make more money selling movies to them than trying to control the movies that are in there. We're good. No, thank you. So I don't really see that being a problem. Except for, because Netflix has talked about having interest in buying their own theater chain for years. Mm-hmm. And something that I could see happening in limited cities is Amazon, I think more Amazon than Netflix, Amazon and Netflix creating or buying a very small theater chain so that they can have easier consideration into Academy Awards. It makes it less of a hassle because they have to play theatrically in certain cities for a certain number of time.
Of course.
And especially for the reason why I think Amazon's more likely to do it is because Amazon, how they do it is they put their movie in theaters first, and then as soon as it's out of theaters, like not long after that, it's on Prime.
Yeah.
Even before it's on like Blu-ray. And that's how they've been doing it, and they've had great success doing that. And so I could see them for sure getting like maybe creating one theater chain that has a location in LA, a location in New York, a location in Chicago, a location in Texas, and then just doing that for their films. And I could see Netflix, Hulu, other places doing following suit. But I don't think any of the major players are going to do anything like that. And because like one thing I saw was like, oh, Disney is going to buy AMC and now chaos. It's like, yeah, Disney's not in a position to buy anything. They're losing so much money because of COVID, and they just bought Fox last year.
Which means they inherited all their debt, so they have to pay that off.
And that costs mega billions worth of dollars.
Things are not buying in Disney's favor.
Anything. I think they will block book the shit out of theaters, though, when they get the chance.
So I do have a question for you about block booking, because out of this whole conversation, that is the most fascinating part to come out of this story. Mm-hmm. So because of the 2-year grace period before anyone can block book, do you think that we're going to see legal movement of like, hey, you can only like, we're putting a limit on how many movies you can block book, like 3 movies, 2 movies, 5 movies, or do you think it's like, do whatever you want, it's a free-for-all, it's the wild, wild west?
Well, as of right now, in 2 years, it's going to be the wild, wild west. I think instead of like, oh, you can only book 2 or 3, I think hopefully over the course of the next 2 years, you're going to have theaters be like, no, we're not going to show movies if you block book. Like, no.
So you think it's going to be more pushback from the theaters rather than legal?
Okay. Yeah, no. I think the theaters will try to get a legal representative to prevent block booking from happening.
Because I could see, I think it'd be fascinating, because we briefly talked about it before the podcast, and you said because of block booking, we saw a rise in B movies in the 40s and 50s,
yes,
and they became very popular.
Yes.
It would be very fascinating to see a legal standpoint where they decide to put a limit on how many movies you can block book. Like, let's say the limit is 3 movies. So we see Universal Studios come out with their blockbuster. They're like, here is X movie, it's going to make $1 billion, but you have to take these 2 smaller independent B movies that we're trying to like help filmmakers out, like come on the up and coming, that maybe they didn't want to put a lot of money into the budget, but they're still like small indie films that Universal decided to take up and snatch. Do you think that that's a possibility?
It's an optimistic way of looking at it, but that would have to have a completely different mindset as to what block booking was originally used for. Because when it was originally used, it was for movies that they thought were for sure were going to fail. So by selling it with a big blockbuster, it guaranteed it would play in a theater for a certain extended period of time. So that no matter what, when people would go buy tickets, they would have to see that movie is playing and eventually watch it, because it wouldn't be cycled out with other movies like normally.
Okay, but do you think it's out of the realm of possibility?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think executives are that nice, to be honest.
That is fair, because all they're in is for the money.
Yeah.
It's all they care about.
Yeah. I would like that, but at the same time, I don't want that to be a block booking reason. I want films to be sold for exhibition
for
at an individual basis. And so another thing that the Paramount Decrees does is when it went into effect, exhibitors could watch movies to see if they think it's going to be successful early. Now they don't have to. Now theaters can just be like, or their studios can be just like, you're taking it. And like there's like no, that's the thing that concerns me, not the theater buying at all. Are you concerned at all about the theater buying?
No.
Yeah, because you worked in the theater with me before.
I know. I worked at a movie theater for 5 years, and every year we always got the same talk. We're losing less money this year. We're losing a lot of money this year, more than last year, even though I knew that, next year would be better with all these big movies coming out. Like, we had 2 years in a row where movies hit over $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't make much money. Movie theaters don't make much money because most of that money goes straight back to the studios.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anyone buying theaters. I think the people who benefit from this, like you, are Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, because they might make a little bit of money on ticket sales if people want to like go watch The Irishman if it came out in theaters for like 2 months, and that's the only way you could see it, you know. But that's the only way I see them making money from that. But like you, my biggest concern and interest is in the block booking and how they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think optimistically about it, but I know that they're just in the movie making business to make money, and that's all they're concerned about. But I would hope that somewhere along the line, someone's like, hey, you know what? Let's limit it to 2 or 3 movies and throw out these smaller independent movies that may otherwise not get any love, like the straight to DVD movies. Maybe we'll see those in theatrical runs. So we'll have to wait and see. I hope nothing bad comes from this, but with this 2-year grace period, hopefully something rises up, whether it's like, hey, actually from the theater standpoint, they're like, actually we don't want to be bullied, so we're gonna have one representative and like tell you that this isn't okay. Or if it's a legal standpoint where it's like only 3 movies.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be surprised if in 2 years if block booking is still allowed. Like, I think theaters are going to actively fight and prevent this from happening. Whether or not they're going to be successful is a completely different story, and whether or not it's going to take one studio to do it, and then the others will follow suit in terms of block booking. But because what you're going to see is you're going to see Disney go to AMC and be like, you're playing all of our movies for the year. And then you're going to go to Universal, go to Regal, and be like, you're going to play all of our movies for the year.
And you have to think about it right now. Who's the big dog in movie making business right now? Disney. They own Marvel. They own they own the MCU. They are making the most money right now.
And that's why block booking is dangerous, which is why when you say, oh, like, what about these independent films? It's like, yeah, but then from one studio, but you're not going to get independent films from any other studio because of it's been block booked with these other blockbusters from the same studio.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be dangerous in that way. And I hope that over the next 2 years, movie theaters proactively fight the idea of block booking now being allowed to come back. And I hope that...
And I'm sure that they've already done work on it.
And I'm sure that right now their big focus is like reopening and not going under. And then once things start to slowly get back to normal, that's when they'll be like, all right, now how do we prevent from a legal standpoint block booking from continuing to be allowed to happen? I think that's what you're going to see.
Wow. We're gonna see a lot of changes in the next 2 years, I think. Not only with COVID and how things are going to go from that standpoint, but from this.
It's going to be heavy.
Yeah.
It's going to be heavy. We'll see.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next section of our show, which is classic movie reviews. What's a classic movie to us? Well, a movie that's at least 25 years old, is in high critical standing, and has a good following of fans. And we went in a way, way, way back for this one. We're talking about 1926's The General, starring Buster Keaton, a silent film in that good old silent era. This is a film that is very well known amongst film fans in the film community, but not really that known to the general audience. A lot of the general audience has heard of like Charlie Chaplin, but I think Buster Keaton is also a phenomenal performer in the silent era, especially when it comes to stunts, as we saw in The General. Before we get into the movie, though, and our thoughts, one thing I want to point out about the movie really quick. It would be remiss if we didn't mention that the main characters in this movie it takes place during the Civil War, and the main characters in this movie are from the South, and they very much so want the South to win. And that's not okay. That certainly did not age well. This movie came out less than 100 years after the Civil War, when there was still some sympathy, I guess, for the South. And while those moments in the movie do not hold up, and we don't condone that, it's still just a phenomenally well-done motion picture. And fortunately, unlike films like the horrific Birth of a Nation, it doesn't portray any sort of like African Americans at all, let alone in like a negative light. But it's still connected to the awfulness of the Civil War and wanting the South to win. Like you see rebel flags. It doesn't put a good taste in your mouth. So it would just be weird if we didn't mention that. And it's definitely a huge negative impact on the film overall. But moving on from that, I really like the movie, and I don't mean to sound like remiss or rude. It's just that I think it's a very well-made picture, And I think that its characters, its stunts, its pacing, all done phenomenally, especially for a silent era film.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead and throw it over to you. Give me some positives about The General.
Well, the only other silent film I've ever seen before this was Nosferatu, and I will say that movie did put me to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It is very boring and very long. But speaking on The General, like you said, the pacing was well done. It kept you hooked. I was into the movie the whole time. The stunts were absolutely fantastic. Like, everything was done for real by Buster Keaton. Like, I've never seen... I mean, yeah, you hear about, like, Tom Cruise doing his own stunts, very, like, life-threatening stuff, but you also have to think about it, like, he's on cables. While, yes, it is very life-threatening, and I don't want to put... I don't want to put stunt performers nowadays down because
it's still very dangerous,
and I can't even imagine what stunt performers go through now. But like Buster Keaton, for example, is on the front of a moving train, albeit very slow moving train, and it looks like it's slow moving,
but still one misstep, you're dead.
Exactly.
And even when the train's going fast, he's like running across the whole thing,
and
like,
it's not like he's on wires or anything. He is just free running back and forth.
Or even like when the train is on tracks and there's a board in the way, so he takes another board and throws it off to prevent the train from derailing. And
he only has one shot to hit that piece of wood out of the track.
Yeah, we should mention this film is about a person who just loves his train engine called the General, and he also is really in love with this girl. Her name is leaving me in the film.
I think it's Annabelle.
Yeah, but he doesn't love anything more than his train and this girl. And when the girl only kind of really seems to be into soldiers, she's kind of a bitch, but she kind of just like, you should really go enlist into the army. And he tries to enlist, but they're like, no, we need people who
know how to run trains.
Know how to run trains, so we don't need you. But he really loves this girl, so he tries to, that's where the comedy kind of comes in with Buster Keaton. Great physical performance, by the way. And he comes in and tries to, swindle his way into getting into the army, and it doesn't quite work. But when his train gets hijacked from enemy troops in the movie, he now has an opportunity to not only prove himself as a soldier, but also get the train that he loves so much back. And that's where a lot of the action and stunts happen in this film.
It's a train chase movie.
Yeah, it's a chase movie, and it's phenomenally well done. Even the cinematography of just like the chase sequences themselves, like everything, and it's genuinely exciting. This is like a 1920s silent picture. Which I love silent movies, but even for like a general audience, I feel like even a general audience could like watch this movie and find a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Oh, I absolutely did. And not that I speak for the general audience, but I mean, that's kind of our dynamic, right? Yeah. Like, you are the filmmaker, you have a film degree, like, the technical aspect, whereas like I watch movies for the general enjoyment for it.
Yeah.
And I can say I definitely enjoyed this movie. I will say you laughed at more of the physical comedy than I did, but still very enjoyable movie, very funny movie, like you said, very physical comedy-esque, and you kind of have to be, especially with silent films, because we can't obviously hear you, so you have to portray, you have to be big, you have to be animated with what you do.
It's almost like stage acting in a way.
Yeah. And
also, you kind of buy this lead character's journey that he's on. Like, you fully understand his desires, what he wants, and you kind of get a little piece of his intellect, how he's kind of clumsy, but that doesn't mean he's an idiot. There's a great bit where there's an extra train car in front of him, and he has to get it out of the way, so he puts it onto a side track, and then removes the track so that his train can go on, and he does it all, runs back. So it's like, okay, it shows you how smart he is with what he does, but what he didn't see is that the train car that he put, the other track he put it on, just circles back around and goes right back in front of him. So he thinks he's won, and then he gets back into the car, and it's still in front of him, and he has that moment of just like, okay, and he just is confused by the whole thing. So I think, you have sequences like that just sort of show, the clashes in his own personality. And also, I know that we keep harping on the like stunt action and like chase sequences. They blow up a real ass bridge, and they blow the fuck out of it with a train, and it was awesome looking. And it's just the fact that they did these such huge bombastic things in the 1920s. Just it's you're watching cinematic history when you watch the film. And
it's very real. It feels real.
And that's something that I really, really like and take away from the film overall. And that kind of pretty much sums up my thoughts about it. I'm ready to give grades, but I'll let you give some extra thoughts on it.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say is it sets up a lot of things that don't seem like they're set up. So, For example, the one thing I could think of right now is whenever Buster Keaton is hiding under the Union general's table, and they're all talking about the map and stuff, and the one general has a cigar that burns a hole in the thing, and they start like trying to stop the fire from spreading, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, are they going to see Buster Keaton? Because when they lift up the cloth, you see him. They're like, oh my gosh, like, is he gonna be spotted? And then they lift the cloth back down, and then it's from Buster Keaton's point of view, and the girl that he loves is in that circle. So like, they set up a lot of things that don't seem like setup, but it is, because if that hole wasn't right there, he wouldn't have known that she was in that house with him, that she was captured as well. So, but that happens throughout the movie where they set up like little things like that, and then there's a payoff for that setup, but it doesn't feel like it's setting up anything. It just feels like it's just the characters doing something and trying to move the movie along with what they're doing with their actions, but it doesn't feel like setup at all, and it feels very natural.
Yeah, it does. It does feel very natural. That's a nice point. But what's your overall thoughts? Overall grade for the film?
I really enjoyed this. Obviously the biggest negative is the fact that this did not age well with the Confederacy and that image. But completely taking that aside, like basing it solely on the stunts, definitely a 4 stars out of 5. Like, I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed the physical comedy that Buster Keaton brought to this movie. Yeah. And it's far different than any expectation I had for a silent movie. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna give the film an A-. Okay. I think it's a really great film. I love it, especially when I first saw it. I saw it in one of my classes back when I was going to school. I really enjoyed the film. The one bearing it has is the nice portrayal of the South. And honestly, I think if you just flipped that, then this is like, I love this movie even more than I already do. But it's just unfortunate that that's the perspective from it's being told. But I still think it is a classic movie, and there are way more offensive films in that era that could be watched, and I think this is one of the lesser ones, even though it would have been a crime for us not to mention. Oh, absolutely. It's a big factor of the movie that brings it down. But when you really dissect the movie, it's really about this guy who's trying to get this train back that he loves. Yes, exactly. And moving on to the last section of the show today, this is Franchise Spotlight, where we break down a franchise movie by movie. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been doing the Harry Potter franchise, and we are now at the finale, Ryan. All we have left to talk about is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Now, since this was your first time watching both of these films, I'm going to solely let you start and do your whole thing. I know that we disagree vastly on one of these movies. Yeah. But I want to hear your thoughts, and after you kind of do your whole thing, I'll do my whole thing, and then we'll collide. Okay. So go ahead. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. So, I'm going to say a very, very bold statement, but then I'm going to retract it. What? Hold on. Deathly Hallows Part 1 is incredibly boring. Very, very boring. However, I'm retracting that statement because I know it has to be boring for the major payoff that is in Deathly Hallows Part 2. My biggest problem with Deathly Hallows Part 1, go to point A to get the thing you need for point B. Go to point B to get the thing you need for point C. Go to point C for the thing you need for point D. It's all just go here for this, go there for that, go here for this. And it just feels like there's nothing there that really like captures me and excites me. Like it almost felt pointless in a way, but also at the same time not pointless, because like I said, it needs to set up for this major conflict that is going to happen in Deathly Hallows Part 2. Deathly Hallows Part 2 is what is going to set up everything that the franchise, or pay off everything that the franchise has set up. So I understand why Deathly Hallows Part 1 is made this way and constructed this way. And yes, there are very emotional character moments, and I do admit that, some of it is sad, some of it's happy. You're still rooting for the characters even though they're on the run. There's some thrilling aspects, there's suspense. Like, I felt all of that, but overall I felt very detached from the movie, because like I said, you're just going here for this, going there for that, and I understand the reasons for it. The Horcruxes are very fascinating, that you need to collect all of them, destroy them before you destroy Voldemort, and it feels very video game like you have to collect all these little pieces, destroy them, and then you can take on the final boss. And that's kind of how this journey has felt. If they didn't have that, if they were doing something else with this movie, it would excite me a little bit more. Like if they had to go around and like, I mean, yes, they were still gathering an army, but if this movie was just them going underground and like, hey, like, do you want to help us? And then there's a traitor there who tries to turn them in, and I know that kind of happens in the movie with one of the characters' dads. But if that was like with the whole movie, it would excite me a little bit more. But again, just going to point A for the thing you need for point B, it just, I don't know, just boring overall. But do you want to give your thoughts on part 1, and then I'll do part 2, and then
go through to the end?
Okay.
Just know that in the words of Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems, I disagree. But
I disagree.
There. Yeah, but we'll get there. Go ahead. All
right, so definitely
the big finale.
The big payoff. Wowee, was this a great movie. I'd say in my top 3 of this franchise. This movie is fantastic. The payoff is very exciting. Everything in this movie works except for one thing. The stupid epilogue 19 years later. Let's send him to the same school that we almost fucking died. Let's send him there.
Everyone who's watching this, who's watched and read Harry Potter, you just made them fucking throw their phones. But no, I want to hear it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I haven't read the books. I'm illiterate, for those of you who know me. So
I was not ready for you to fucking say that. Just the way that casually rolled off the tongue. Oh my god.
Yeah, but I never read the books, so my only knowledge of the Harry Potter universe, the wizarding world, is from the movies. But this movie had tremendous payoff. It felt so good to see Harry Potter and Voldemort face off twice. One of the times Harry Potter fucking eats it. Yep. And I did have a little bit of confusion on that, but you clarified that, which helped, because he definitely died but somehow came back to life, and I had a big problem with that until you explained it. But it felt nice to see like big boy villain versus big boy hero finally face off, versus like this cat and mouse that's been happening throughout the whole franchise. And it was incredibly sad to see Hagrid like hold Harry and what we thought was dead.
Such a heartbreaking
and
shot.
Every character in there thought that he was dead as well. And then Neville, our boy Neville, came through and destroyed the last Horcrux. It was nice to see him do something, because last time we saw him actually do something, he was standing up towards Ron and Harry and was like, "You're making Gryffindor look bad." And they were like, "Fuck you, Neville. Get out of our way, freaking nerd." So they finally gave something to do. But overall, I loved Deathly Hallows Part 2. And just remember, film is subjective.
I know.
Even though you're wrong, but it's fine.
No, I don't speak for most of like Potterheads when I say I adore Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Oh wow, adore.
I love that movie. Love that movie. I think it is the most character driven, one of the most emotionally resonant films in the entire franchise. And it's a film that slowed down right at the right time, right before it was going to hit its peak finale, to just remind you why you started this journey, to remind you these are the people, these are the characters that you fell in love with, and this is them at their lowest point possible. It reignited your passion to see these heroes complete their mission. And without Deathly Hallows Part 1 as its own movie, you don't get that reignited feeling, and you don't feel that full sense of closure, in my opinion. I also think the film does an excellent job with its use of suspense. There are so many scary and suspenseful scenes in this movie, not only with action, but just with cinematography and storytelling. The sequence with the snake around the halfway point of the movie, when they're going after Ron and Hermione and Harry, the main character, couldn't fucking remember his name. But that sequence is very suspenseful, very scary. The sequence when the Death Eaters are all having dinner with Voldemort, and you don't really know what's going to happen, is very, very suspenseful. You have beautiful character moments like Harry and Hermione dancing. I thought that was such a beautiful moment, and the heartbreaking looks on their faces after they have that one moment of happiness, and then they realize the shitty world that they're still in, and then it was all felt like it was for nothing. Then you have that weird-ass nightmare where Ron sees naked Harry and Hermione make out for no reason, which just scared me. But you get these characters really kind of fully grasping where they're at for the last time, and leading into the finale of part 2, I thought it was the perfect move to make by Warner Brothers to split this movie in half, so to be able to properly tell from an emotional standpoint the conclusion of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think others copied it and split their movies in half, but for like cash grab reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mockingjay didn't need to be 2 fucking movies on Hunger Games side. But I really enjoyed the film, and I know that I'm in the minority of like the movie fans. I love Deathly Hallows Part 1. I do think Part 2 is better, and I do love Deathly Hallows Part 2. I think that it does have emotional moments mixed in as well with all the action, but it's kind of one giant action sequence, and but it works and it flows so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that each character kind of gets their moment to shine, kind of gets their knight in shining armor moment. I think that the actual final battle with Harry and Voldemort was built up and perfectly executed, although I didn't like how he kind of confettied away. I wanted him to fucking die. God.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like. But yeah, no, but and even like where all the characters ended up, I like the fucking epilogue, okay? It seals the end of the story and shows them at the end of their journeys, you fucking guy.
I will say that part literally knocked down a whole star.
Really?
That's how much I fucking hated that.
Wow. Why did it bother you so much? Let me get it from you.
It's just like, just end it with them standing on the bridge. You know, like they won. Leave it ambiguous like that. We don't need
but it's like it's the end of the story, and it's showing you where they ended up.
Yeah, but we know that Harry ends up with Ron's sister. We know Hermione and Ron end up together. We know all this. It's just more so, like, I get it. It's more so for the fans who grew up with these movies and watch these movies. So of course, if I would have grown up watching every single one of these movies in theaters, I probably would have cried in that moment. And I know that that's the emotional impact that they were going for, but just kind of watching them all the way through, it's like...
Let me throw a counterpoint at you.
Okay.
Imagine the very original Star Wars ending without the throne room sequence. Because we know that they won and blew up the Death Star. We know that they're going to get praise.
Before the throne room, what's the last scene?
Them blowing up the Death Star, and then they go back and celebrate, and they're all like freaking out at the hangar, and they send off R2 to get fixed, and then it's Han, Luke, and Leia all walking towards the camera as it fades away.
Oh, movie still works.
No, man, you don't get the throne room. You don't get the freaking song. You don't get freaking Chewie getting screwed out of a medal. You don't get so much in those final moments.
But does the movie still work without that scene?
Sure, but it improved it, and I think that...
You think the epilogue improved Harry Potter?
I do. I think if you would have ended them on the bridge, it would have felt awkward as shit. It would have felt really weird.
It probably would have felt awkward, but I still think the movie is all the same.
No?
Interesting.
No.
That epilogue literally knocked down a whole star.
No, I think the epilogue is a nice touch, personally.
And that's totally fair.
Yeah, but I love the conclusion of Snape's character.
Oh my God, yes.
Super sad.
Very, very, very well done redemption story.
Yeah, and Alan Rickman's performance, fantastic. And you can kind of go back and rewatch Harry Potter, knowing how his story ends and knowing whose side he's really on. And it still works, and you can see it in his performance even. It's really, really quite fascinating.
Yeah, it truly is. And even in that sequence, they really go back and show you like performances that he gave in those other movies, and kind of like, in case you forgot, this is kind of what he was doing in the background.
Yeah. And it was really fascinating to see very sad stuff there. Yeah, no, Deathly Hallows Part 2 was awesome.
I do want to say one last thing before we give grades.
Yes, go ahead.
Deathly Hallows Part 1 definitely has one of my favorite sequences in movies, and I believe King Arthur does it as well, when they're just like running through, there's no score, and they're like blasting their wands at them and like trying to capture them. And that whole like chase sequence I thought was well done. No, it was Sherlock Holmes that did that. I think it's Game of Shadows when they're running through the woods and they're getting shot at.
Yeah.
I love that sequence. No score, nothing. It feels real. Like it feels like that there's real stakes there. And then Dobby dying. I feel like it's a crime if we don't bring that up. That was so sad. That was so incredibly sad. I thought Dobby was annoying as hell.
Yeah.
Whenever he was first shown, I can't remember.
Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, it was Chamber of Secrets. I thought he was super annoying there, and then they brought him back for Deathly Hallows Part 1, and my God, what a cool character he was. And they just
Yeah.
It was cool how he died, I will say. How Bellatrix threw the knife and like that, how you discover that it went through the teleportation thing with them.
Yeah.
I thought that was super well done, and I almost cried for Dobby. Yeah. That was very, very sad, but Dobby did die a free elf.
It's because part 1 is an absolute fantastic movie.
Fucking no.
And it reaches new heights of emotional depth within the Harry Potter franchise.
Interesting. But I think because of that emotional slow movie, you're able to have Deathly Hallows Part 2, where it is one long action movie where things happen in between. They're still like running around the battle and like running around the castle, and that movie, I agree, only works because of the way Deathly Hallows Part 1 was made. I just found it very boring.
I see you, but I don't think of Deathly Hallows Part 1 as just a setup movie. I think it is a setup movie, undoubtedly, but I think of it as a standalone great movie in the franchise also.
Okay.
Yes.
That is fair.
So we finally reached the end. We're not going to do Fantastic Beasts. Ryan.
Yes.
Give me your official Harry Potter. Well, give me grades for Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 first, and then we'll give your rankings of all the Harry Potter films.
So Deathly Hallows Part 1 comes in at 3.5 stars out of 5. So a little above average.
Okay.
And Deathly Hallows Part 2 gets 4 stars. Would have been a 5-star with that stupid fucking epilogue. But
I think your grading system's weird. I'll say it.
I think your beard's weird.
No, but okay, cool. All right. Now I give Deathly Hallows Part 1 an A and Part 2 an A+.
Okay.
So, give me your ranking. Best to worst.
Oh boy, let's look at all these Harry Potter movies, because I did not make a list coming prepared for this.
Here, mine will be off the top of my head too. Do you want me to do mine?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Best to worst.
Yes.
Best, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Wow.
Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
Order of the Phoenix. Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Okay.
Goblet of Fire. Half-Blood Prince. Original, Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets. I think that's all of them. Yeah.
I think you're a little wacky with some of your picks, and you can see that on my face.
Yeah. No, but that's how I personally rank the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yes. So give me your shit.
Number 1, Half-Blood Prince.
God, you and Nick and Kyler all feel the fucking same way.
God, what a fantastic movie.
You guys are so whack.
I would say Half-Blood Prince. Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Okay.
And then we have Order of the Phoenix. Goblet of Fire. The original Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. If you want to be real technical.
Yeah.
And then Chamber of Secrets last.
Interesting.
Very.
Yeah. But
well, we definitely disagreed, which is very fun. Very fun for arguments.
Always fun. But also, first time ever watching Harry Potter, was it an overall satisfying experience?
Overall, yes. I will say, though, if I were just to pop on a Harry Potter movie right now on TV without looking at the title, it would confuse me a little bit, because it seems like once they get older, it all seems like one long movie. Like I would say from like Order of Phoenix to the end, it seems like they all just seem like one movie, which I don't know if that was the intention behind it, but overall, very satisfied with this franchise. I do not love it as much as some of the other fans may love it, but
there's some diehard Potterheads
absolutely
out there.
And you know what, more power to you. Absolutely more power to you. But I can definitely say I appreciate this film, I appreciate the films, I appreciate everything, all the time and effort that went into making these, and a very enjoyable franchise. For anyone who hasn't seen the Harry Potter franchise, please do yourself a favor and watch them all the way through. It is very, very, very wonderful to see the payoff 8 movies in.
And now when you go to Universal, it'll hit different.
It will, absolutely. And it's funny because thinking about Diagon Alley, and then when it was first shown in the movies, I was like, God damn, that's like, that is spot on. That is spot on.
Yep.
It is nuts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now you can know why all those fans were happy when they went and saw it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's all we have for today's show. That's all I gotta say too. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.